Good afternoon. Once again, time for the weekend preview here at Timeform. We're going to look ahead to some top-notch national hunt action this week, which sounds a bit strange to say, Ben, because I'm still in flat mode. I don't know about you.
I've made the switch.
Okay.
I tend to the sort of start of November, late October. The first Cheltenham meeting, I tend to start. That's when I sort of make the mental change, and I start looking at less flat racing and more jumps racing really, and start obviously betting more on the over jumps as well. But it's a pretty good card tomorrow. Thankfully they are due some rain overnight in Wincanton, because it is currently, I think, very, very fast conditions. I think it's good to firm at the moment, but they've got about 6 hours of rain forecast for this evening going into overnight, so you'd think that will make it pretty safe ground. It's not going to be horrible conditions, but it should soften it up, because maybe it'll be good to soft or something like that, which would be ideal really. And it's a pretty good card that's held up fairly well. The race that the horse that I'm sort of most looking forward to trying to back is actually not in any of the ITV races, but I will just mention it. It's in the second race, the conditional jockeys handicap chase. The horse called Fourth Bridge, who's trained by Charlie Longsdon. This horse I thought ran a really good race in a very competitive novice at Utoxeter last time. Essentially just went toe to toe with a really well backed horse from Dr. Richard Newland's yard, and essentially ended up getting tired. Just a sting for Harry Fry, eventually won that race, but I think it's a really strong bit of form. It's yet to be tested, but this is a much weaker event essentially for Fourth Bridge, and hopefully he'll be able to go out in front as well. There's one or two, Leglock Luke, and I believe there's another one in there that did go forward at one stage and did make the running. Buster Thomas is the one that also has front run before, but I think there's a possibility of Fourth Bridge being able to get an easy lead, which is always a positive round Wincanton, and I think if he's sort of 4-1, 9-2, I'll definitely be having a decent bet on him.
Okay, an early fancy for Her Majesty then, and we'll look at the 4 races that are going to take place on ITV on tomorrow. Starting with the 150, am I right in thinking, Mayor's Handicap Hurdle? Yeah,
this is obviously there's already markets for all these other races, so we can get a bit of an early look at what's going to be worth backing. I do think that If You Say Run is probably the most interesting one in this race, and I've just seen the price. I think she is favourite, if not. She might not be outright favourite with everyone, but she's pretty short anyway. But I do think that she's a mare that's going to have a fair bit more to offer this season. She travelled really, really well through a listed race at Sandown last winter, and she just looked the sort that would just improve with experience and a bit of time. And this just isn't a particularly good race, to be honest. I don't think. You've got some out of form horses that have sort of fallen in the weights, but she's still on the up really. She didn't run very well in her last start, but she'll have been freshened up. You'd expect Paul Nicholls to have his runners very fit and ready, especially for a Wincanton race. Anything at Wincanton is usually targeted by him, so I think that she would probably win that, but I wouldn't be recommending necessarily piling into her at 5-2. I think that's probably about the right price, but I think she's the most likely winner of the first.
Okay, If You Say Run then in the 150. We move on to the 225 now, Grade 2 contest, and the market seems to think it's 2 to concentrate on here in Bags Groove and Secret Investor, both 6-4. Do you hold the same opinion?
Yeah, I think they're pretty hard to split. Bags Groove has obviously already got that chasing experience, has run a couple of times, but did make a big step forward from chasing debut when winning at Foss last time. Jumped really well, beat Jester Jet, who was progressive last season, looks a fairly good bit of form. And then you've obviously got Secret Investor, who came out and won the Persian War over hurdles already this season, now makes the quick switch to chasing, and he looks a chaser physically. He's an Irish point winner and he's trained by Paul Nicholls, so the chances are he's going to take to it very, very well. They're very closely matched on hurdling form, Bags Groove and Secret Investor. Bagsgroove is a pretty solid handicapper. Secret Investors come through the graded route, but they've got very similar ratings on from Timeform's point of view. Bagsgroove's obviously got that little experience edge that may count for a little bit, but you'd expect Secret Investor to be very, very clued up and well schooled. I would just go for Secret Investor if I had to have a bet, but I think they're both pretty closely matched. I think it will be between one of the two of them, but it's going to be tight, I think.
So Secret Investor, the tentative pick in the novice chase. We'll move swiftly on to the other Grade 2 on the card, the Elite Hurdle, and looks a really interesting race. There's a few catch the eye. Vidana Blue 94 at the minute.
Yeah, this is a brilliant race actually. There's a few Elite Hurdles that you get just, the same sort of horses turning up in, and they're not particularly interesting. You might get one interesting horse that ends up being a very short price, but I think in this race we've got, nearly every horse in here is an interesting hurdler in some form, and particularly your eyes are automatically drawn to If the Cap Fits, who made a perfect start as a novice over hurdles, won 3 of his 3 starts, looked a brilliant prospect really over hurdles. Obviously he's had a lot of time off, clearly wasn't easy to train last season and developed a problem of sorts, so that is a concern in the back of your mind with him for this, but clearly he's very, very promising. You'd think that We Have a Dream probably going to have, the connections are probably going to have their eyes on bigger things down the line. This isn't going to be his be all and end all this season by any means. He'll be aimed towards the big festivals again further down the line, so maybe he won't be 100%. And then you look at the ones that have had runs already. You've got the likes of Rhodesian, who I thought was a little bit disappointing at Cheltenham. I don't think that was a brilliant race, so I'd still think he's possibly going to go on again this year, but I was a bit underwhelmed by that. I think Vidana Blue, provided the conditions stay on the quick side and it doesn't go heavy or soft, which I don't think it will. I don't think they're going to get enough rain for that to happen. I thought Vidana Blue was the most solid one. She's had a run. She seems to be getting better. She'll be suited by a small field scenario. She's got a really, really good turn of foot, this mare. I thought last year she was just pretty unlucky to only win. I think she only won once last season, but that was a really good bit of form at Ascot when she did win. And she ran in some of the top handicap hurdles throughout the year on really bad ground that I don't think she really wants. I think she's a horse that has a really sharp turn of foot, and it shouldn't be too bad. It should be it's a sharp track and the ground should be okay. Both things are in her favour, and she's had a run obviously at Kempton, so I thought she was the most solid one. Again, I was hoping when I opened the betting that maybe If the Cap Fits or We Have a Dream would be shorter than they are. I thought Vidana Blue might be sort of the outsider of those three, but they tend to all, at the moment they seem to be the same price. We'll wait and see what happens with that, but I think Vidana Blue, if she gets out to sort of 7-2, 3-1, 7-2, I'll probably back her because I think she's really interesting. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with the prices.
Okay, Vidana Blue there then, and the feature up next, the Badger Rails Trophy. Painstakingly competitive this in the betting. 11-2, the field. El Bandit and Present Man at the moment joint favourites.
Yeah, it's one of those where I think quite a lot of them are fairly exposed if you start looking towards the bottom of them. The bottom of the field, you've got likes of Best Work, who's a summer horse. Belmount is exposed. Big Bad John, I'm not completely convinced about, even though he won last time. I think he might need to have his own way out in front. I think you can strike a fair few of them off for all that there's a lot of runners and it looks competitive. The one that I've backed a couple of times already this season, but he keeps being pulled out, is Ramses de Taye for David Pipe. I think they've been pulling him out because of fast ground. He handles cutting the ground very well. He won his races last season on pretty heavy ground. He's had a wind up and essentially just looks like a horse that will go on again this season. I thought he ran really well at the Cheltenham Festival. It travelled really well for a long period of time, and then on his final start in the Silver Trophy, I think he just probably had enough of the season. I think this mark is definitely a favourable one. I'm not sure whether today's going to be the day for him or whether they're prepping him for something else. But the fact that they've pulled him out a couple of times when they could have got a run into him already on quicker ground is a positive sign, probably. So I think at double figures, he's currently 14 to 1. I'll definitely be backing him in a race that probably won't take masses of winning, I don't think. It's a big field and a deep handicap, but you look at it and it's a 0 to 155. And the top weight is 144, so it's quite a low quality renewal. And Ramses Tete is technically one of the class horses of the race, essentially.
Okay, Ramses Tete there, I'm glad you pronounced that. I was having nervous thoughts. We'll switch to the one race at Aintree now. Yep. 240, a really competitive looking handicap chase this, and Hell's Kitchen is the 3 to 1 favourite.
Yeah, I mean he's a horse that's always had a lot of talent. But he hasn't always been particularly straightforward in both the way how he's been to keep sound and what he's like on the racecourse. He often pulls quite hard. He has made jumping errors before as well. I think I could see him winning this, but he's been putting it 3 to 1. I would not back him at that price just because of the sort of horse he's been. I think he is a bit. He's not particularly reliable for all that he's probably quite well handicapped from that mark. He's obviously still very lightly raced and that he could improve. But given that he's 3 to 1, I would be looking to find something against him. The problem is that there isn't anything massively attractive, I didn't think. I thought King's Odyssey was a possibility. He's just been really solid over the last few seasons. He hasn't won for a bit, but he ran really well in the plate at the Cheltenham Festival when we last saw him, when his yard were coming to the end of a particularly dry spell. He seemed to hold his form throughout the season, even though the yard were running quite, the horses from the yard were running quite poorly on the whole. This time around, Evan Williams does seem to be going better. He's having winners. A lot of them are running well and going close. So in that regard, there could be a little bit more for King's Odyssey from a mark of 139. I don't think that's beyond him, and they've left him on 139, and he finished third in a festival handicap last time. So that seems fair enough to me. I think he'd be a solid each way play at sort of 7 or 8 to 1 against Hell's Kitchen, who I wouldn't be surprised if he fell or something like that, just the type of horse that he is. I'm not a massive fan of Barry Geraghty over fences either at the moment. He just seems to be lost some of his confidence over the last couple of seasons, and he often keeps them very wide. They often tend to make mistakes under him, so that's another negative for Hell's Kitchen for me. So I would say probably King's Odyssey would be the solid one against the favourite.
Bro, cheers for that, Ben. Just to recap then, at Aintree it's King's Odyssey in 240, and then what is it you fancied at Wincanton?
We got, in the second race, I'll definitely be backing Fourth Bridge. I won't be backing If You Say Run, but I think she'll win the third race, the Mayor's Handicap Hurdle for Paul Nicholls. I think probably if I had to choose in the fourth race, Secret Investor, of the two, Bags Groove and Secret Investor, probably just side with Secret Investor. I might back Verdana Blue, depending if I can get sort of 7 to 2, 3 to 1, but it looks like she's a bit shorter than that at the moment. I do think she's very interesting. And then Ramses Tete in the Badger Rails.
Bro, thank you very much.
Thanks.